Hello friends, welcome back. So let us now start with a new theory, that is Gagne's theory of learning. Now this theory is proposed by Robert M. Gagne. He is an American educational psychologist. His theory is commonly known as conditions of learning theory. Okay, this theory it explains that different types of learning require different conditions for learning to occur effectively. Okay, once one condition doesn't apply to everything. Every situation has different conditions that will aid in effective learning. Okay, Gagne emphasized that learning produces a permanent change in the learner capability or disposition. So it creates a permanent change in the capabilities of the learner. He integrated ideas from behavioral and cognitive approaches. So he used both of these approaches to put forward his theory. This theory is important because it connects learning principles with instructional design, systematic instructional design. So it will connect the principles of learning. Learning has various principles. So these principles are connected with instructional design. Instructional design also means teaching methods. Okay, instructional design. So what is the definition of learning according to Gagne? It is a change in human capability or disposition that persists over time and is brought by experience. So, this experience will bring about the change in the capabilities of humans, and they exist for a very long time. Okay, that is the meaning of learning. Learning according to Gagne. So, what is the key idea? Learning different outcomes under dif- different learning outcomes will come under different learning conditions with appropriate instructions. So you have to, if you remember this, you will be able to write about this theory very easily. What are the major components of learning theory? There are 8 types of learning according to him. There are learning hierarchies and 5 categories of learning outcomes are there. And there are internal and external conditions which are responsible for learning to occur, and 9 events of instructions. So we will see all these major components in the upcoming slides. Now, small introduction about Robert M. Gagne. He's an American educational psychologist. He made important contributions in the field of psychology of learning and instructional design. His work mainly focused on understanding the conditions that are necessary for different kinds of learning. So, what are the conditions which are required for various types of learnings to occur? He emphasized that instruction should be planned according to the nature of the learning task. Okay, based on the learning task, the teacher should conduct her classes. What are the basic assumptions of this theory? Different kinds of learning require different conditions. Okay, learning involves change in the learner's capability. So if he is capable of doing a particular task in a particular way, after learning his capability will change. He will be able to do it. If he is not that effective in doing that particular work, after learning he'll become more capable and more effective in doing that particular work. Previous learning influences new learning. So associating previous knowledge is very important. Complex learning depends on relevant prerequisite capabilities. That means in order to learn something that is very complex, okay, you need to have some prerequisite capabilities. That means you should have some previous knowledge in solving a complex problem. So complex learning will require certain amount of previous knowledge also. Internal and external conditions will greatly affect the learning. Then effective instruction should provide appropriate conditions for learning. So conditions for learning is also, you should have proper conditions. The physical conditions like the ventilation, the seating arrangement, all those also matter for effective instruction. So let us come to in the previous slide we have seen the major aspects of this theory. So let us see one by one in detail. So first one is Gagne's 8 types of learning. So according to him, learning is of 8 types. Okay, first is signal learning. Okay, this learning occurs when learner develops a response to a particular signal. Okay, through association. Okay, it is closely related to classical conditioning. So if a signal or a cue is given, the learner will be able to understand. Example, a student will become alert when school bell rings. So school bell here is the signal and the person becomes alert. That is a learning because the bell has acquired a particular meaning. Classical conditioning theory, I have made a detailed video. Please check it out. Then the second one is stimulus response learning. We already know, we have seen in our previous videos about stimulus and response. So this stimulus response learning occurs when a learner learns to make specific response to a particular stimulus. So there is a stimulus, and after this the person encounters the stimulus, he will give a response. Okay, that is stimulus learning. The response is strengthened through practice and appropriate consequences. Example, student raises their hand when the teacher asks a question. Okay, and whatever this the response is there, that will become more and more with practice. So practice makes a man perfect. Okay, the next one is chaining. What is chaining? Chaining occurs when several previously learned responses are connected to form a sequence. So it is nothing but connecting all the previous responses to make a meaningful learning. So this response, all these responses are connected in in that person's brain. So based on this connection, learning occurs. Example, to perform a laboratory experiment, the student requires several learned action to be performed in the correct order. Suppose he is doing a chemistry experiment. He should have previous knowledge and he should connect the previous knowledge to the present knowledge and then perform that experiment. Okay, then verbal association. This verbal association occurs when learner connects verbal units in appropriate sequence. Verbal means it is nothing but it is related to words. Okay, example, memorizing definition, poem, vocabulary, or sequence of words are explained, are examples of verbal association. Okay, all these definition, like under memorizing a definition, poem, vocabulary, all these require knowledge of words, right? So that is verbal association. The fifth one is discrimination learning. This one, as the name itself suggests, the learner will be able to distinguish between different stimulus, okay, and give responses according to them. So he will be able to identify each stimulus and he will be able to differentiate between all those stimulus. Example, student learns to distinguish between similar chemical symbols and mathematical signs. Okay, the next one is concept learning. This occurs when the learner identifies common characteristics among different objects. Okay, he understands common characteristics among different objects, events, or situations. So he will understand the concept behind that particular topic. Example, learner develops the concept of a triangle after identifying different figures that have 3 sides. Very easy, okay? So he will understand the triangle concept based on various other figures which have 3 sides. Then rule learning. Rule learning occurs when learner understands the relationship between two or more concepts. Okay. Example, student learns that the area of rectangle is calculated by multiplying its length and breadth. This is a rule. A person is first to, in order to learn that particular concept, he will learn the rules. The last type of learning is problem solving. This occurs when the learner combines previously learned concept and rules to solve a new unfamiliar problem. So he will use his previous knowledge and rules, okay, to solve a new problem. Okay, this is a concept. So it represents more complex form of learning. It is a complex form of learning, okay, when compared to all the above, because the learner must select and apply appropriate knowledge to a new solution. So it is previously whatever knowledge he learned, he has to apply it to solve a new problem. Okay, that is problem solving. Now the next important concept here is Gagne's learning hierarchy. So he emphasized that complex learning generally requires the learners to possess prerequisite capabilities. So in order to, I have already told you, in order to learn anything that is complex, a learner should already have certain knowledge about that concept before only. Okay, the learner should acquire the necessary simpler tasks before attempting a more complex task. So in order to attempt a complex task, in order to learn a complex task, learner should first master simple tasks or simple skills, and then he should go to the complex task. So teacher should identify the knowledge and skills that learners already possess. This is the role of the teacher. So this is the overall flow chart for you. You can go through. The next important concept is 5 categories of learning outcomes. Okay, Gagne has identified 5 major categories of learning outcomes which describe what a learner can acquire or receive through an instruction or a teaching method. Okay, first category is verbal information. It refers to the ability to state or recall facts, names, definitions, and other information. So it is basically related to remembering and recalling words. Example, recalling names of plants represent planets represent verbal information. Okay, the next one is intellectual skills. They refer to the ability to use concepts and discriminate between various stimuli, apply the learned rules, and solve the problems. Just learning rules is not enough. Applying that learned rules in real life situations or problems is called intellectual skills. Okay, for example, applying a mathematical formula to solve a problem. Okay, simply learning mathematical formula is not useful. You have to apply it somewhere to see how much you learned. So this represents an intellectual skill. The next one is cognitive strategies. They refer to the learner's ability to control and regulate their own thinking and learning process. Example, selecting an effective method for studying a difficult topic represents cognitive strategy. So what strategy you are using to study that particular difficult topic is cognitive strategy. Then motor skills. They refer to the ability to perform physical movements accurately and smoothly. The name itself tells motor. Okay, ability to perform any physical task, writing, drawing, typing, performing laboratory procedures, exam, etc. Then the last category is attitude. Attitude is the internal state of mind that influences a learner's choice of behavior towards people, objects, or situations. Okay, that is your mindset, the mindset of a particular person, which will make that person react to a particular situation or people. Okay, the state of mind that will result in a particular behavior. Example, developing positive attitude towards science will encourage student to participate in science related activities. So his attitude towards science will determine what kind of behavior he will show towards that particular subject. So the next important concepts that affect learning are internal conditions and external conditions. Internal conditions are the capabilities and the mental state that are already present within the learner. So what is his the particular person's mindset? It includes previous knowledge, attention, motivation, memory, skills, and cognitive abilities. So all these are related to the mind. They are internally present in a person. They cannot be seen externally. Okay, previous learning is very important. Okay, previous learning is very important, particularly important because new knowledge can be connected easily with the existing knowledge. Okay, previous learning is very important internal condition. So what are various external conditions? They are the conditions which are provided externally by teacher, learning environment and instructional materials. Okay, they include explanations, demonstrations, examples, practice, feedback, reinforcement and assessment. So all these are the conditions which are provided externally. Different types of learning require different external conditions. So internal conditions plus external conditions will give rise to effective learning. The next important point is Gagne's events, 9 events of instructions. Okay, so the first important one is to gain attention. So a teacher's primary responsibility is to capture the learner's attention or gain the learner's attention through questioning, demonstration, problem solving, images, or by giving an interesting activity. So gaining students attention is very very important, and questioning, demonstration, problems, showing images and providing interesting activities are ways to gain attention of the students. Inform the learners of the objectives. So the teacher should clearly explain the learners what is expected out of them. Okay, that should be clearly communicated to the students, and stimulate recall of prior learning. So the teacher should activate the relevant previous knowledge before introducing a new content. So before starting a new content, teacher should give teacher should make the students recall the previous knowledge. Present the content. Teacher should present the new information, concept, skills in a clear manner. Then provide guidance. Teacher should provide explanation, examples, demonstration, hints. Wherever necessary, hints also should be provided. Diagrams and other forms of guidance related activities. Then elicit performance. That means learners should be given an opportunity to practice or demonstrate whatever skill they have newly learned. Then provide feedback. It is the teacher's responsibility to provide correct and timely feedback so that the students can correct their mistakes. So timely feedback and correct feedback is very very important. If feedback is not given immediately, if it is delayed, then the effect will not be there. Okay, then assess performance. Teacher should use various assessment tools to assess whether the learning objectives, intended learning objectives, have been achieved. Okay, then enhance retention and transfer of knowledge. So students should be given immense opportunities to remember what they have learned and apply that knowledge in new situations. Okay, so these are 9 events of instruction. So these are the various examples of the 9 types of instructions. You can go through very easy. Then, what are the merits of this particular theory? It provides systematic framework for planning instructions. It identifies that different learning outcomes require different instructional conditions. It is not one size fit for all. Okay, it emphasizes prerequisite knowledge or the previous knowledge and skills. 9 events provide practical structure for lesson planning. It connects psychological principles with the classroom instructions. That means what is going on in the student's mind is connected with the classroom instructions, and based on that, the teaching methods can be designed. Okay, then limitations. It learning does not always occur in fixed or strictly sequential order. Okay, it can be changed. Learning is flexible. Then hierarchy maybe is too systematic for some complex learning situations. Then 9 instructional events may not be practical to follow completely in every classroom because b- students are of different kinds. So learning should be adapted according to the students needs. So it is not possible to go in that particular order. Okay, this theory gives comparatively less emphasis on social, emotional, and cultural influences of learning. So, these three aspects are neglected. So, this is a quick revision you can go through. Hope you liked my video. Please support me by liking my video and subscribing to my channel. Thank you.